That's a good clip. Perpetual black lung. This week on the show.
Consumption.
Oh, man, that's good.
They got to go back to that. Tuberculosis not happening. Consumption was where it was at.
Hello and welcome to Old School Episode 6. Today is May 29th, 2026. My name is Daniel Bader.
I'm Steve Radosha. I mean, usually it's the episode number. It's the date. The year was the problem today.
Yeah, it's the year. I'm like, 2026?
Oh, that's when you know it was a good week. That's when you know it was a good...
This week has felt like a year, so I'm sure it's 2027 already. How's it going?
Not bad. You know, I love to see the internet. You were international media star. You should tell people how your global tour went last week.
My global tour.
You went on several. We got a bunch of new listeners. We had one person who wanted a prize for binging the entire series that we've done so far. We should come up with some sort of tier system for that. If someone's willing to endure that type of discomfort over a length of time, I was thinking maybe a signed dodgeball from you. The revenue.
I got a few stray dodgeballs that I could sign.
See, there you go. We got to come up with something to reward these people for actually sitting through us blather on for hours at a time.
So, thank you, by the way, for
thank you.
For listening to 5 episodes in a row. Even though I thought it was only 4, but I did for the first time. So I need to. This is some inside baseball.
Oh no!
I don't like social media. Social media makes me puts me in a bad mood generally. So I don't post anymore. And as I have said on the show, like, this is my first independent show ever. Like, I've hosted 3 podcasts over the course of 12 years, but all of them have been owned by some person or corporation. And when I left those jobs, I left the podcast, as you know, because you did the same thing when you left Android Police. So this being the only time that I've, co-owned a show, this is our thing. We do this ourselves. We host it, we edit it, we put it out, we ask AI to do a bunch of stuff that doesn't work, and then we do it ourselves anyway. So I was like, okay, fine. If we want to grow the show, I actually have to make it known that it exists. So I started going online and telling people on Blue Sky and Threads and Twitter and blah, 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 Instagram, that we have a show, and we got a few new followers. So if you're listening to this from any of those blasts, thank you. But it also awakens this beast in me, right? Because the dopamine beast of, like, I got responses online.
Ooh.
I don't know if you feel like that, but anytime that happens, every time you get a comment on something and it's not "you're ugly and I want you to die," I get off on that, even though I'm 40 and I don't feel like I should be getting off on that these days. But it's hard when you're like, I want to be a creative person and putting things out in the world and taking chances. And then people are like, yeah, good for you. Take your shot, man. Like, we're here for you. And you're like, oh, that feels really good. I will continue to do this.
Definitely. And I get that from YouTube, and you will feel that until the day someone posts on one of your videos about an S21 Ultra that your fingers make them nauseous. And then all of a sudden, that just completely melts away and is replaced by the sheer dread that the internet usually
100%. I mean, that's why I stopped posting in the first place, because when I had aspirations for being like a big media star a decade ago or so, I took everything personally. Anytime somebody said, I don't like your take or you're a bad writer. I remember I wrote a post once. This was right after I met my now wife. I was 24, and I wrote a post for my first job in media, on Mobile Syrup. And I had written about, I think it was like a Motorola, something back when, like, remember when Motorola had that weird skin? What was it called?
The ones that you could pull out and put back? The Moto...
No, not the physical, like the Android skin.
Oh, yes, Carousel.
Yeah, I forget what it was called. But anyway, I wrote about how back then, everything was skeuomorphic and you had like the HTC phones with their own take on Android, and Motorola had its own thing with Android 1.6. So I said I gave this phone to my girlfriend to play with to see if it was like accessible to a normie, right? Because this is the kind of journalistic integrity that I had at the time. I was like, look, this is Android in 2011. This is not particularly user friendly. I wanted to show it to somebody who's not in this every day. Like, let's see if she can get it. And she hated it, and I wrote about that. And the first comment was, "You're lying. You don't have a girlfriend." And I still remember that because in my like sensitive haze, took this quite personally.
Like, get in the shower, really, just curl up into a ball.
Like, not really, but like I was like, why? Like, why do this? Like, why be an asshole on the internet?
Right.
And I've since come to learn and accept that people are assholes on the internet, and you can be an asshole to me on the internet, and I'm fine, mostly fine.
No, I tell you what, for some reason because I came to the writing later in life, that wasn't what I was looking to do. I was YouTube first, YouTube only for the longest time, and then I started doing the writing for AP. And the comments in the writing don't bother me. What bothers me, the videos, even after 6 years, there on occasion there'll be someone. Now the off the wall ones are like, okay, you just kind of laugh off. But every once in a while, there'll be one that still gets to me. You think you'd be desensitized to it, but we're human. It still will get. There will be one that somehow gets through a little bit. Now, you don't show it because you encourage it. They smell fear in the comment section. But, every once in a while, that one gets like, I'll go to my wife and it's like, can you please this? And that there would be one that really catches me the wrong way.
I get it. I absolutely understand, and I empathize because it's, people want to be liked. I don't think that's a particularly novel idea. We are humans. We want to be liked and appreciated. I am doing this not because I want to make money. I mean, if you want to pay me and, if advertisers want to eventually pay us.
He is speaking for himself. If you want to, just come on
well,
over.
what I'm saying is if you want to pay Steven to take layers of clothes off over the course of an episode, I won't complain about it. I mean, that red sweater is beautiful, but,
Very vibrant, saturated.
But I'm saying you can't do something with aspirations you can't do something this small and niche with aspirations of eventually making money from it, right? You do it first for love. And I podcast for love. I podcast because I love the people I talk to. I love the conversations. And I love the feeling of having an outlet that I can be genuine and dumb and honest and maybe occasionally insightful, and that's cool. And if people want to listen to that, I'm here for that. So anyway, going back to what I was saying earlier, I just think like we've kind of I've at least accepted the fact that I need to be a little bit more out there. So what you mentioned last week about me going on an international world tour, I was on a couple of Canadian news channels this past week for, if you're Canadian, you might know about the Online Broadcast Act, which is basically, I could do a whole episode on this because I'm fascinated by it, but nobody would listen. And
they actually trying to regulate that? Or are they actually taking a swing at that? Because no one's gotten that right.
No, so they have. It was a law passed in 2023, and I'll give you the 30-second elevator pitch because it's a lot. But basically, this idea is that Netflix, Amazon, Apple, YouTube, like all of these companies, these U.S. companies that are making content in the U.S. and distributing them all over the world, they are eating into local culture for all intents and purposes, right? Local productions, local, music, local movies, TV shows, and whatever. And for every heated rivalry, which is a success story, for every Schitt's Creek, which is a success story, there are like dozens of Canadian shows that are bad and nobody watches them. And the Canadian government over the decades has said, like, look, regardless of the quality, we just need to have people in Canada making Canadian content because that is how we perpetuate our culture, right? And our culture, it's this tricky thing, right? Because we're sort of not, we're separate from the US, but we're close to the US. We're a Commonwealth country. We're essentially governed by the monarch still, even though we have a prime minister and a parliament and a constitution that's completely separate. But this idea that we have to adapt Canadian culture laws and Canadian streaming broadcast laws for the modern age has been something we've been talking about since the 90s. So the government passed this law in 2023 and said that a portion of revenues made in Canada by these American companies will have to be put back into the economy for Canadian content, which makes sense. A lot of countries have these laws. France has these laws. Switzerland has these laws. Holland has these laws. Australia has these laws. The UK has these laws. It's not uncommon. What is uncommon is the amount of contribution. So on Thursday at 4 p.m., the Canadian government's regulator, the Canadian telecom regulator, the CRTC, said Netflix, Apple, Disney, they have to pay 15% of their Canadian revenue into Canadian content. 15%, which is the most in the world by like an enormous margin. So it's not that they were like, no, we don't want to do this. It's like, what are you talking about? 15% is like a meaningful impact into our ability to like continue operating in Canada. Right. Like we're going to have to.
Right. So they're going to start. They're pricing themselves out of the market.
Well, they're going to have to pass the costs along to Canadian consumers, basically. And the other thing that they're saying is like, especially Netflix and Disney and all these, they're like, we already produce a ton of work here. Like there are so many American shows that are filmed in Vancouver.
Yeah, they're all in
filmed
Vancouver.
in Toronto.
I mean, starting with the first one I remember was the X-Files, but they were all in Vancouver. I mean, so I mean, what does Canada think? What does Canada think they're not getting here?
Well, they're not getting Canadian content out of it, right? So that's the thing, is that there are a bunch of stipulations about what constitutes Canadian content. It has to be 50% owned by a Canadian copyright holder. It has to have a certain percentage of the showrunner or the director or the producers or the scriptwriter or the cast has to be Canadian, right? So like you have to meet a certain criteria, a certain threshold to be considered CanCon. Anyway, this is
what I think they're over. Without knowing anything about it, I think Canada's overplaying their hand a little bit. They're trying to ruin a good thing.
I went on to the news twice last week, the morning show here on CTV and the CTV National News to talk about this, which was fun. And then I did Miriam Joire's Mobile Tech podcast on Friday. So, and then we recorded our show last Friday. So last week I was just by the end of the day on Friday, I could barely speak. I was so
social battery
exhausted.
Was on empty after that.
Yeah,
a lot going on.
Exactly.
Were you anxious going to tell? What was the? Did you have that kind of cold sweat going before television, before the podcast? What was the? Did you pump yourself up? Were you feeling? What was the vibe for Daniel?
Yeah.
Before
So
going?
the live hit in the morning was interesting because I woke up early. I had to do it I have to be on the air at 7:00 last Friday. So I woke up at like 5:30. Not like I didn't try to. I set an alarm for like 6, but I just couldn't stay. I like woke up anxious and then I couldn't get back to sleep. Took a shower, had made coffee. But when I went on, like I haven't done a live hit in a while. I got really nervous and I stumbled over my words and it was unpleasant. I regained my composure. I think I did better because it was a 7-minute live hit. So it was a long, long hit. And I would say by like the second or third minute, I was fine, but I did not feel good about the first couple of minutes. And to their credit, like they just kept on prompting me and I took a deep breath. I remember there was like a moment where I was like, and then I got my thoughts together and I was more coherent after that. But it's tough, right? Because don't have, there's no like leniency here. You can't say, stop, I need to do another take. Like you just got to keep going. And it's weird. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah. Well, listen, you did it. We didn't get a national hit though, unfortunately. We know where your loyalties lie, but we did get on the podcast and we got some subscribers from. But you did an excellent job. We appreciate you for the betterment of both of us going out there and using some of this international celebrity and this network that you've built up over the years to help us out. So
I should have done that at the end of the live.
See?
I should have
Just
been like,
throw it
by
in
the
there.
Old school. Blah, blah,
no,
blah.
but that was the merch. See, you got to do it in a more subtle way.
Oh,
you don't have
right.
to. You just wear that sweater that I had AI make for us.
Yes.
That people should absolutely buy. It had laser cats doing all kinds of things.
Yep.
That's what you wear. So it's a subtle plug. They can't. What are they gonna do? Put you in a green suit? What are they gonna do? Black you from the head up or something like that? No. You're a walking advertisement. Is how you get around those things.
Do you like? I should know this. Do we own the copyright to that?
Yes,
If
I've
Gemini
asked that
makes it-
before. Yes, we do.
OpenAI or Gemini makes this for us. Like, can we use it?
We
for
can
merch?
use it. Yes, I've asked Gemini that. So now whether
Is it right?
whether it's a hallucination or not, I don't know. But I have asked that, and yes, because I was curious about that, because the early problems and one of the big reasons why I thought that you couldn't use AI in journalism was because it's pretty liberal about borrowing phrases without attributing sources. So I always thought that was the big boo-boo with having plagiarism claims. So I asked that. I said, listen, you're making it, but it's all original. I mean, it's original to us. It's original to the prompt. So there's nobody else sitting there saying, please take these two middle-aged men and surround them by cats on a shirt. So I hope there's not anybody else saying that anyway. But so that's what you get. So we can use these things, yes.
How much do we charge for a T-shirt?
See, I see a lot. See, this is where people make the mistake. A lot of people, $30, just because even though the T-shirt is about $3, but the little markup. I think we go 27. I think that we kind of undercut people a little bit. It's a style thing. People are going to want our faces on their bodies, so I think we play off of that. The Motorola Razr Ultra, great phone, $1,500. I don't know. You're paying for the style. You're paying for other things. So while the T-shirt might be $3 or $4, what's our premium? I think our premium is at least $20 on top of that. So that is how I'd calculate it.
I would agree with that. I would say $27 is fair. I went to a show last night. Have you ever heard of Cake? The band?
Oh, yes. Yes, I have.
Short skirt, long jacket. You know that song? It was
Yeah, that's
like
the one. Right.
Mid-2000s.
Yeah.
They were I was amazed that this band, which I've loved since I was like 10 years old, filled a stadium of 16,000 people, full. Like, it was completely packed. It was wild. They were selling T-shirts for $70.
Ooh.
Now, this is Canadian dollars, but that's basically $50 US.
All right, it's still a lot. Still a lot.
I was blown away. Like, I knew merch had gotten expensive, and I know that this is how touring bands make their money now. But it's like morally reprehensible.
And they're kind of
shirt for $70,
especially for bands, kind of spoken word. Like, they're almost like William Shatner. I mean,
there was a lot of that actually last night. Which actually leads me to our topic for today, which is physical media. So every few weeks, what we'd like to do when the news cycle dies down a little bit is to, I think, like, actually live up to the name of our podcast, Old School, and talk about the things that we grew up surrounded by in tech. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about was physical media, because I have a lot of feelings about clutter in my house. I'm a bit of a neat freak. I'm a bit of a thrower outer, and I can tell you are not. And this is why we do so well together. So let's talk about it. What was your experience growing up with physical media? Did you have CDs? Did you have vinyl? Did you have tapes? Like, what was your introduction to that world?
So vinyl's only recently made a comeback. I mean, we're a little young, believe it or not. It's refreshing to be able to still say that. we're a little young for the first wave of vinyl. At least I was, because it was still the hi-fi systems and all the rest of it. I started with cassettes, VHS tapes, so I was a little young for Betamax. But that was what you grew up with. Went to CDs, MiniDiscs for a little while, DVDs, physical video games. Mm-hmm. So media is what I was used to. You said you are a neat person. I am some people, my mother-in-law included, would say hoarder. I think that's inappropriate. I think it's collector. And you know why? You know why I get away with collector?
Euphemistically.
Well, yeah, but you know why I get away with collector? Because now, if you wait by the river long enough, now those things have started to increase in value. So the things that were considered junk 10 or 15 years ago has now gone up. My cassettes are now worth more. My DVDs are, well, DVDs not so much yet, but all these computers and the physical stuff that I have, games for sure, Nintendo 64 games, forget it, have gone up in value.
100%.
So I happen to like it. We talked a little before the show. I think it's an ownership thing. I understand that we started with, well, you get a backup of it and whatever, but I don't know how much I've spent rebuying content over and over and over and just doing it because, A, the barrier is low. It's usually less than $5 to rebuy it. Movies a bit more. But I'll just do it just to have it on whatever platform I'm on. But, man, is that annoying. I don't know how many times I've purchased the same movies and the same music and the same whatever CDs that I have sitting in my basement. And that's something that I really we've gone away from, is that what you own and how long you own it for. And, man, I hate the fact that basically stuff that I have that I used to be able to hold in my hand is now essentially a lease, almost a subscription model.
So when you grew up listening to tapes, what was the setup? Like, did you have a hi-fi in your living room that the family listened to, or was it like, did you have a little tape deck in your room?
Yeah, both. So we had the hi-fi, we had the Sony. I still have it. It's from the early 90s. We had one before that.
Oh, those were beautiful.
I still have the Sony, and there was the speakers where you weren't hooking up a jack, a 3.5 millimeter jack or anything like that. You were doing the wires. Like, it was just bare wire on the end, and you were putting it. It's still probably for higher-end speakers. That's still probably the case. I don't know. But that was great. You set that up. There was a CD player on the bottom, which was a big deal at the time. But there was 2 cassette decks, because that way you could have 2 of them loaded up, but you could also record from one to the other if you wanted to do
dub.
That. You dub.
You made mixtapes. That's
you made mixtapes. So, and then when it was time to go on the road, I had a bright yellow Sony Walkman, waterproof, one of the first waterproof ones. That was the AM/FM radio. Yeah. In addition to the cassette tape that I take to summer camp with me, because instead of going in the pool at summer camp because it was annoying, I couldn't. You'd have to go into the pool, then you get out of the pool, you're soaking wet, you have to go change again. Then you're going for another 5 periods. I would never do it. I'd sit there. I'd say, you enjoy the pool. I'm going to sit here and listen to Mike and the Mad Dog, local sports radio, sports talk radio here in the New York area.
God, I
would do that with the radio.
Steven.
I had that, my cassettes, my different, I can't even, I'm trying to remember what my first cassettes were. And boy, they were bad. They were just as bad as they are today with the pop. I listened to very mainstream pop. I'm bad about it. The dance, 80s dance, 90s dance.
Like
Amy
Ace
Grant,
of Base, or we're talking.
So there's
like
Ace of Base in there, yeah. There's Ace of Base in there. Real McCoys. There's a lot of those. Mariah Carey, big Madonna. I mean, all those I listened to. So all those cassettes were with me. I'd sit there, I listened to them, I enjoy it, and that was my experience with it. I love cassettes. Cassettes were phenomenal for me. It was a compact form factor, easy to use. I love the decks themselves. I understand there was always a lot of moving parts with them, but I loved cassettes personally. I still have a bunch of them.
I remember the physical timbre of placing a cassette in the deck and pushing the door closed.
Yeah, when you got
and pressing the button, the play
button.
That
satisfying,
oh, it's so satisfying. That feeling of you press it down and there's that, like, at the very end of that actuation, you feel the click, and then the spirals start turning, and you see the play, you see it moving, and it was like, there's really nothing like it, right? Like you didn't really get that with CDs. Like, there was a physical movement to CDs, but it still felt disconnected from kind of the physical actuation of, like, playing music, because
Yeah, and it's not
laser.
enjoyable because CDs, I'm still to this day, I still feel uncomfortable pushing down to get them into the thing. I still feel like I'm going to break CDs to this day and DVDs pushing down to get it over those 3 little spikes.
So, okay, so you had tapes. You had this CD deck in the living room that had a dual tape player. You had a little Walkman. You had a boombox of some sort in your room. You're listening to, New Jersey talk radio, which I'm just like, I'm picturing little Steven sitting on a beach chair next to the pool, watching everybody else while you have your yellow headphones on with your yellow AM FM radio, and you're just like building your radio voice.
I'm sitting there. Yeah, no, I listen to talk radio. My wife gets on me all the time. I listen to podcasts in the car. I'll listen to music too, but I actually listen to podcasts in the car. My wife is always fascinated by how I could just sit there and listen to talk radio, but it was sports talk radio, and I would do, since the cassette player had a record function, I would actually do, like, it was, I think the morning show at the time was Imus in the Morning. I would actually do kind of faux broadcasts, and I would interview people around me. And it was 6 and 7 years old, and that was.
Did
what
you
I was
ever record yourself doing it?
Oh, I did. They have been lost to time.
Oh man,
I've thought about. I have my early college radio checks still. I still have some full broadcasts, including
Can
the
we
sheets.
play some of those?
I gotta find them.
I want to play some of those.
Absolutely, 100%. I did one called Love Line. We did a Love Line ripoff, a nighttime show where we did relationship.
Like people would call in and tell
100%.
you their love story, their
Absolutely.
like heartbreaks.
Absolutely. We did the whole thing, and you could IM at the time. That was big. You could do AIM. You could sit there and message us live.
Yeah.
WTBU DJ was the screen name, and you could sit there and message us your relationship questions. So
say again,
WTBU, Boston University.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that wasn't your DJ name. What was your DJ name?
No, it was Steve Burbank at the time.
Okay.
It's a long story. People, that's inside baseball. But with Steve Alicious came later. Steve Alicious came with YouTube.
Yeah.
So Steve Alicious Tech was.
That's a YouTube name right there.
That is a YouTube name. That was a later creation.
Do you want to hear my first internet handle?
I would love to.
Okay. This is I want to say grade 7. So 1997. So I emigrated to Canada from South Africa in 95 when I was 10 years old. Okay. We bought on Boxing Day that year, because we had a computer in South Africa, but it never connected to the internet. We only got the internet here when I came, because the internet back then was very expensive in South Africa. It was 14.4 modem, very, very expensive. I had one friend whose dad worked for the government who had internet access in South Africa. But when I got here, it was relatively affordable, relatively accessible. We went and lined up. You know what Boxing Day is, right?
So, no, I was just going to ask you to explain this. It's day after Christmas?
It's the day after Christmas.
Okay. And what is it? Okay. What is it? What is the catalyst behind the holiday?
That's a good question.
Are you
a bad Canadian? I don't actually know the origin of it.
Oh my.
It's the day after Christmas. Boxing Day was once a day to donate gifts to those in need, but it has evolved to become a part of the Christmas festivities. Originated in the UK, is now celebrated in many Commonwealth countries. It's just like a part of
just
the
a day,
tradition.
just another day,
but
just another holiday.
Traditionally in Canada, it was our discount day. It was like the Black Friday of the yesteryear. So every Black Friday, every Boxing Day, we would go to Best Buy and line up and get. They would call them door crashers, and we would So on that day, December 26, 1995, my dad and I went to a place called Future Shop, which if you are Canadian, you know what Future Shop is. It was eventually bought by Best Buy and shut down and replaced by Best Buy. But back then it was Future Shop. And we bought a white or beige tower, the kind of beige tower that you could buy in the 90s. It was a Pentium 75.
Ooh, blazing.
It had, I think, 32 megs of RAM, and I want to say a 8 gigabyte hard drive.
Yeah, that tracks. That's about what it would be at the time. Yeah,
I don't think this was even a brand name. It wasn't. It was like the
IBM compatibles.
The tail end of like the IBM clones. So every store had their white label IBM clone, and it was just like a mishmash of parts. I don't think it was a brand at all. Back then, I mean, I'm sure you remember this, right? Gateway was like the company everybody would order a computer from, the cow company.
Yeah, Gateway. You had Compaq. You had
HP.
But yeah, like that was about
So this was my first. This is my introduction to the internet, and we had a 14.4 modem as well, and my handle was Flamin' Ice.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So I mean, I won't say our password, obviously, for it was not far off. Flaming Ice.
No. Not Flaming Ice.
Oh, okay.
Flamin' Ice.
Flamin', no G.
With an apostrophe.
You could get it. Okay. You could. Now, what? First off.
Very important.
I mean, you were early enough, so I'm not completely surprised you got that. Mm-hmm. Also not surprised that somebody else hadn't claimed it yet. But this was so AOL then? What service did you secure
No,
this
ICQ.
on?
So we did not have MSN or AOL here. They didn't. I don't think they offered AOL until a bit later, until 98. So we had like a local ISP, and I got on ICQ early.
Wow.
So my friends and I never used MSN or AOL. I only used MSN in university when it was a bit bigger. But ICQ was like the OG messaging service for me.
Yeah.
And I still remember my ICQ number. Like
you still remember your number?
Yeah.
Oh,
like back then it was it was linear. So if you signed up early, you had a number in the 1 millions. So I had I was 1877562, which was like 1.8 million. Like I was one of the earliest users, and I was very proud of this because I had a 7-digit ICQ.
I don't remember
Everybody else had an 8-digit ICQ number. I was the same with BBM, by the way. I don't remember it anymore, but I used to remember my BBM number. And people would give me crap about it all the time because, like, why on earth would you remember your BBM number?
Mine started with a 4. That's all I remember. I know mine started with a 4. I'm pretty sure. I
cannot recall. My wife.
I still have my 7230 sitting here that still powers up. The wheel doesn't work anymore, but I could. It probably will still show my number.
I would love to have an episode dedicated to the BlackBerry. Like, just that episode would be such a nostalgia trip for me and for you because I know how much you still like that form factor.
Yeah.
But I mean, you and I like have a lot in common when it comes to like early phone stuff.
That was just so, I mean, just because, I mean, to frame the time, now Verizon made you pay more for the BlackBerry data package, so maybe that's how they hosed you on it. But at the time, if you were a big texter, 25 cents, okay, and 10 cents to receive. So you saying hi and them saying hi back was 35 cents, just gone. So BlackBerry comes in with the messenger as we're sending it through data. You don't get charged anymore. It's so hard to explain. Just like if you were to go to your children or even somebody in their 20s and throw the IBM compatible thing at them, they look at you funny. And the same thing is
go watch Halt and Catch Fire and then come back to me, and like that will help you. I love this train. I love this line of thought, but we cannot fall down the BlackBerry rabbit hole because that is a whole other episode that I would love to talk about. But let's stick to physical media. So, okay. So when was your transition to CDs from tapes?
That was late 90s. Okay. Late 90s when they started to get popular. Early 2000s, really, for the most part. That's when you got like all the stores that are out of business now. I forget all the music stores that there used to be a ton of music stores that would sell just either clearance CDs I don't know what this says, but the music that I would often listen to, I'd often get the CDs on clearance. You get Manny Moore, you get a lot of these CDs, and that would be Coconuts was one. I'm trying to remember the ones in the United States, but there was a bunch of them. And you could go there. Circuit City would always have stuff on clearance. You could go there and get physical CD players. Now, I had one. I would burn a lot of my own CDs at the time because my My first PC was a white label like yours. Actually, the first two. The third one I got was an HP. We were up to Pentium 3 at that point, 500 megahertz. That had a 20 gigabyte hard drive, which at the time, the man at CompUSA told me I would never fill a 20 gigabyte hard drive. I remember that to this day because that is one of those hilarious freezing takes type thing. So I had that. So I had a CD burner on that. And boy, if you had a free 6 hours, you could go ahead and make your own CD. And then I have the little CD player that had to have a buffer, right? Because you had to have like a 10-second skip or something like that. Because if you didn't, every time you tapped it, you'd be cutting out of your song.
For sure.
So there was a little bit of RAM inside these, essentially, that would buffer part of the song. So that way, if you hit something in your car, or you dropped it, it would keep playing until the laser could find its way again and start reading again. So that was what I carried around. I didn't carry around my CDs. I never carried around as much as my cassette because size. That's why I like cassettes so much. CDs were a pain in the butt to carry around. They were great for the car. When you put a CD cassette deck or a CD deck in your car, and you could have the binder in the back seat with all your CDs. That was phenomenal. But as far as carrying them around, I didn't carry CDs around a lot.
No, of course. I mean, you obviously had the flip book where you would have like your favorite CDs, but you would only carry them or in the car, or like if you were going on a vacation or something. Right. Did you have like a Panasonic Shockwave or something, like one of those like heavy duty CD players?
The portable one, you mean?
Yeah.
No. So later on, I think I had a Sony. I didn't have one of the big heavy brick ones. I always tried to go for the sleeker ones. What I was always jealous of the ones that had kind of multifunction on the LCD on the front, because I thought those were really cool. So I never got one of those because those were expensive. CDs were the Walkmans were expensive.
Yeah,
but the CD players, the portable ones, were really expensive if you got a full featured one.
Yep. Yeah, so my first CD player was a Sony Discman, which was at the time like the top of the line. I think I got it for like my 12th or 13th birthday, and it was beautiful, but it had no buffer. So if you tapped the top at all, so it was basically stationary. Like you could not use this.
You couldn't move it. You couldn't walk
outside at all. And eventually, I think it was a couple of years later, I got a Shockwave, which had a bit of a buffer, and I could like play it at school. But I thought these Discmen were beautiful. Like if you're looking at the early Discmen, or the Walkman that eventually became, the buttons, like the tactility, like they all looked like UFOs. The Sony Discmen and the Walkman, like they just looked like beautiful objects, and the little switch on the side that would like flip the lid up so that you could put the CD in. It was just glorious. It was just like a beautiful work of art. And I mean,
Sony design is something that we've lost through time too, because people forget how those late 80s, those early 80s, and then the 90s design. I mean, Steve Jobs was big on that with the iPhone, between Sony and Leica, big design influence. A Sony design was just, like you said, the buttons and stuff. Some of those Walkman, they sell for a lot. Even the older ones sell for a lot on eBay. Even the early MiniDiscs players, like the decks that they made, were absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I just love that. I just have them sitting on my desk.
So later on, when CDs became not supplanted, but augmented by recordable discs. So this is another era that I kind of want to talk about, because prior to the MP3 evolution, we had a few sort of different paths that things went on, right? Depending on who you were. Some people stuck to their CDs, but a lot of people, when MP3s got big, they were downloading from Napster, from LimeWire, from whatever, and then they were buying these CDRWs or CDRs, and they were recording MP3s to their CDs, and then you would buy a CD player that was compatible with MP3s. So at first there were, a few, like some companies wanted to put DRM on it so that you could only listen to purchased MP3s. Some of them had like proprietary file names that would only work with particular CD players. But eventually, you would just be able to put whatever MP3s on your disc, burn it, and then it would just play. And you'd have this like rudimentary directory system with these terrible LCDs on the front of the Discman.
Who was big on that before? Through. I was trying to remember the name of the company, the big right before the iPod. But that was it. Nomad.
Oh yeah,
Nomad make a bunch. You're right. Okay,
creative,
Nomad was making creative. Right.
Yeah. I mean, that was my first MP3 player. Was a Creative Nomad, and they were great for a while, and then the iPod came along and changed everything.
Well, I mean, and that was the disappointing part about, because I personally, now MiniDiscs found like a second life in like literally radio stations, like college radio stations, because we used to use these big, right before I got there, it was up, like talking in the 90s, use these big DAT tapes that you'd like push in and hit whatever. It looks like a big 8-track. Then we moved to MiniDisc because they were smaller and you could put them in, and it was great. And Sony built these big rack-mounted things that you could put them in and have a couple of them queued up at once, and all of a sudden it was great. But the problem with the MiniDisc players and stuff like that is when that came out, expensive, and it never, since the iPod came out roughly at the same time, and that took off, the MiniDisc never got to the point where they became like a CD, where it became cheap enough for you to just buy one and have a bunch of them and carry them around, which I think is a shame. Because of all the technologies that I really wish got a second shot, or I had the same, I guess, penetration of like a CD or a cassette or something like that, it would be the MiniDiscs.
The MiniDisc, yeah. So that's a perfect segue, because I had a MiniDisc player for years. And for me, that was this revelatory moment where I was able to dub, because this was a rewritable disc, right? That was small enough that could fit 70 minutes or 80 minutes of music on it. And what I would do is dub the music from my computer. I would plug it into my MiniDisc player and play the music and record it in real time onto the MiniDisc player like a tape. But the quality was good. The experience not great, but it was, functional. And at the end of the day, like, you could put any audio from your computer onto this MiniDisc. It doesn't matter where it was coming from. It just you would be able to just press record and siphon that song. So I have, and this is so embarrassing to admit, but I need to tell this to you, because this was a defining moment in my childhood.
I can't wait now.
I was 14, I think, or 15. So this was like around the year 2000, 2001. I can't remember exactly. But as a young man is wont to do, I consumed pornographic material occasionally. And I know, it's shocking. And I, the technologist that I was, decided to impress all of my friends by recording a few of those videos, the audio of those videos, to a MiniDisc player, because I thought it would impress my friends. So I come to school and I am walking around listening, not to that, because I didn't walk around just like listening to it, because that would be even stranger. I was strange, but I'm not that strange. And I told my buddies to come over, and I put the earbuds in, and I play a selection of these recordings.
Oh,
so
coming off your story last week about how you would follow that woman around on the cruise ship, that
seriously,
you had that 15-year-old Daniel.
I was a horny ass kid. I don't know what else to tell you. I think this is just all coming out now. No pun intended. But it was a, I was a kid. I was a rough and tumble horny kid. But anyway, so I listened to this stuff, and my friends were listening to this stuff, and this gets shockingly spread around the yard very, very fast. That Daniel has a soundtrack of porn available to listen to. So, I don't know if you can tell, but I was not the coolest kid on the playground.
Oh,
I know that's hard.
You mean your ICQ number? You didn't walk around. That didn't do it. That didn't get the kids just like, hey guys, I'm in the millions.
I had good friends. I was very happy, but I was not the guy smoking cigarettes in the pit, But anyway, so I'm like getting more and more people asking to come and listen to this. And one of the teachers in the yard sees this gaggle of teenagers and decides to investigate and takes this from me, listens to it, and then confiscates the MiniDisc player. And I go into the office and I sit down with the principal, and the principal asks me, like, in no uncertain terms, what the hell are you doing? And I told them that I did this thing. I'm sorry. It was a bad idea. I shouldn't have done it. He said, I'm not going to suspend you because you're a good kid. But if you do this again, you're going to be suspended. And if you do it another time, you're going to be expelled. My parents didn't know. My parents still do not know. So if my mom hears this, for the first time, she will know what I did. I have never in my life told this story to anybody. You are the first person I'm telling this story to. I don't even think my wife knows this.
Wow, for good reason. I mean, I know the early days of your...
I was just a confused and a desperate child for.
Well, I don't know how to follow that with my MiniDisc. With the big thing that I remember about MiniDisc, but I was trying to. We used it for radio a lot because it was a great medium for that. Because you could have the portable player; they were smaller than cassette decks. You could bring them around. You could record with them. It was great. Tracks were a pain in the butt, but that's a different story.
That's true. That making like tracks for that was really hard.
Brutal. So I wanted to break into the radio stations. I wanted to do something different. So the communication school, we had this really buttoned up dean who actually was one of the professors that taught Com 101 himself. He wrote the book. He was big on it. Whatever. He was a rear admiral. Okay, so he handled he handled communications during the first Bush administration for something. He was a rear admiral in the Navy. Big deal. So I go into his office. I say, Dean Baker, would you like to record some things for me? So what I had was what the bit was Dean Baker's Magic 8-Ball, where I had him read off insults to the different DJs and other students and stuff like that. I recorded each one of them, and then I would have people who come into the studio pick off a number, and then it would read out like a Magic 8-Ball. So I had the rear admiral sitting there telling kids they were dumb and whatever else, and that's what I remember for MiniDisc. At the end, I could see his face after he'd finished reading into this MiniDisc player. He didn't really understand. I don't think he understood what he was doing, but I think by the end he understood that it was probably not an amazing idea that he did this. I used it anyway. He never spoke about it again. He never gave me any problems. It was a big deal for a while, but that was just MiniDisc. I will always remember fondly.
Wait, it was a problem?
No, well, because I played it during I played it on the college radio. And it plays through the building.
For whom was it a problem? Like, he didn't get upset with you.
No, he didn't get in trouble. I think he felt a little uneasy about me.
I see. Okay.
Because it would play in the building.
Yeah. Okay.
It would play in the building. So you had him over the thing.
That I would like to hear. I'd love.
I have that. I still have that MiniDisc. I have the early advertisements, the bumpers that we would read. Mm-hmm. I have the early that. I had early air checks. The different promos that we do, I have all of those MiniDiscs still around.
So that's, I mean, to say that you were forward thinking is an understatement, because it like speaks to how you understood the significance of what you had. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you just like held on to it for sentimental reasons. But I sold my MiniDisc player. I sold all of my old gadgets, like all of them. When I moved out of my parents' house, I was like, I did not want to keep any of it. I was like, this is garbage. I'm never going to use it again, because I didn't foresee a time when it would be useful or nostalgic. I was somebody, and I feel like a lot of people in our audience would empathize with this, where the move away from physical media was like a liberation for a time, right? This idea that we were no longer constrained by the things that we could buy in stores or have delivered. The fact that like a CD only held 74 or 80 minutes of music, it like that felt like an inherent limitation to me, right? That the fact that it was so just messy to navigate these hundreds of MP3s on these old, like, I don't know if you remember, you talked about the Creative Nomad series, like those early, some of the jukeboxes, they looked like CD players.
Well, they were huge. Right? They had to be, because they had they literally just had a hard drive in them.
They had
like an ID hard drive,
5400 RPM hard drive in them, and because people were just coming off of CDs, they made them look like CD players. But they had these rudimentary LCDs in the middle with a bunch of buttons, and the way that you navigated it was through this like file system.
And the UI was trash.
And it was terrible. And it was like you had to organize. You had to spend time in the file explorer on Windows, making sure that all of your artists were like labeled properly, and that your MP3s had the correct what was it called? Like not EXIF data.
Not the metadata, but
yeah, but
I know
metadata,
what you're saying.
But it
metadata.
had a particular name.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. But yeah, some of them, that was the problem, because when you download from Napster,
ID3 tags, that's what it was.
Right. You wouldn't know. Some of them would be well tagged. Some of them wouldn't have any tags. You'd have to go back in and do it. I mean, that's why iTunes, I think in part, was such a revelation, because you could do that on your computer instead of sitting there and fiddling for forever with these things. But then the transfer time, if it weren't FireWire, I mean, the transfer times on some of these were painful. Yep. Those, I mean, I like the look of those nomads. I like some of the things that they were doing. But like you said, between the interface, the transfer times, and just being able to navigate your music, it was a disaster.
But I mean, eventually everything looked like an iPod, right? 2001 iPod debuts, and then a year later, everything looks like that, which is it's a small box. It's much more portable. We had the Zune. If you recall.
I still have a Zune. The Zune was interesting. I love the Zune. I had the pink Zune. I love the double shot plastic that they used on it, where it had like the translucent layer before you got to the color. But that was great. But it was like you said, it was like kind of a very iPod-esque interface on the Zune.
Yeah. But I think today, I was doing some research for this episode, and I was trying to understand, like, what is the. I mean, I kind of get it from like a metaphorical perspective, or it's not metaphorical, a philosophical perspective, like why disillusioned Gen Z and Gen Alpha kids are trying to reconnect with physical media, because this is novel for them, but also it's tangible. It's something that it takes effort, right? This idea of like friction maxing, which I find so fascinating.
I have never heard that before in my life. Please, friction maxing?
You've never heard friction maxing?
Never heard of that.
Okay.
Is that where you're trying to
subscribe to Vanity Fair or The Atlantic or any of these
where you try to do stuff tactile? We're so disconnected. The children are so disconnected as a society that would do anything tactile just to friction max? Is this what this is?
Yes, you absolutely nailed it. That's exactly what it is. So it's this idea that because everything is so accessible and so easy, right? The idea that like your phone just works and you swipe and you scroll and you don't have to do anything. There's nothing is difficult to obtain. No media is difficult to obtain. That if you are going to sit down and consume something, if you're going to, get your chair and put it in the middle of the room and have your speakers, your stereo speakers separated in in equal distance apart. Like you're sitting down, you like put on a vinyl or a CD or something that you physically have to move and like make a decision to listen to. And I understand this. I get it, because people passively listen to movies or to music. They passively watch movies and TV shows, right? Like, how many times are you watching something and your phone just happens to find itself in your hands and you happen to be doing something else?
Okay, you're correct. But what I know we're old, but I wasn't around for the end of the Roman Empire. But I have to imagine if there was something where they're saying they're too comfortable, so you're artificially creating some sort of aggravation, or I don't understand. I get it. I get it that you want to feel something.
But that's it. You want to feel something. There's a nihilism that younger people feel when it comes to the internet, right? When it comes to culture, when it comes to government and their prospects. And like, some of my most seminal moments in childhood were like pushing a VHS into a deck and like pressing play on Goonies, or watching Indiana Jones for the 5th time. My cousin watched the Titanic dual VHS so often that she wore it out. She had to buy a second version of the Titanic VHS because she watched it so many times.
Love it.
Right? Like,
that was a two-parter. That was a two.
That's it. Like, these were consumables, right? You scratched a CD and it skipped. You have a dirty cartridge on your vinyl and it doesn't work properly. That doesn't happen digitally. Like, yes, your Bluetooth may cut out occasionally, but it's not a physical thing. It's not a feeling. It's a lack of feeling.
What? We were talking about merch, and that was tongue in cheek. I have what we should do as a revenue stream. We create a 90s Strife fantasy camp for these kids. We invite them out. They got to blow on Nintendo discs. They got to put stuff into the cassettes into the Sony Walkman. They have to sit there. We would have like an activity period where they'd have to sit there with a pencil and rewind a cassette deck that had somehow gone screwy. This is you've touched on something. Friction maxing is a revenue stream for us as nostalgia people.
I think that's absolutely right. Actually, one of the first things they have to do is we buy them that beige box with like a Pentium 75, and we ask them to transfer like 500 megabytes of data from one directory to another and just have them sit there. Or we get them on like a 28 baud modem and we ask them to like download a couple of photos from the internet and see what happens.
The first Britney Spears song, when it was like 6 hours, I think, on my 33.
Yeah, you would download something at night, and you would hope that it would be finished by the morning.
Didn't corrupt in the meantime. It was something. Someone didn't call certainly. Or something. Yeah. Oh.
So I think we're onto something.
Oh, that's perfect. That is absolutely perfect. You're right. And it's sitting there. Your modem doesn't work in your beige box that some guy built in the back of his garage, and you got to open it up because the jumper switches on the ISA card aren't working right, and you just watch the horror. And he's like, "You're frictioning now, aren't you?" And then you just watch as they try to navigate these things. I love that.
So when I was 16, this is well after the MiniDisc porn incident. I had a side business, or not a side business. It was a business because it was my only business, building computers for people. And it was a joy. I loved doing this. And I went online and I would source parts and I would order them. And it was mostly for like friends' parents who needed just like a good, cheap computer that they could rely on. And I knew all of the companies, the reliable companies, and I would do like aftermarket support for them if they had an issue, and it was fun. It was just like a great way to spend some time. I really enjoyed, and I'm just thinking about that now. Like, you cannot build a computer even if you wanted to, right? Like, you can't order the parts. There's no RAM.
Too expensive. Yeah, no RAM.
There's no RAM.
I tried. And the same, my wife, we bought I built my wife's PC, and we were able to get DDR5 32 gigs for $100. I went to go upgrade mine 2 months later, and that same RAM was $600.
Yeah. I mean, to be topical for a second, because this week has not been completely absent of news, we haven't touched on the fact that the Steam Deck, which debuted in 2022 for $399, is now $750. Like an absurd amount of money.
That's a lot for that. That's a lot to play your games at 1080p.
And it's the same thing. I mean, I think this is the Steam Deck OLED, which is slightly more expensive, but still, like, it's the same thing. And every single, like, the Steam or Valve has not even released the price of the Steam Cube, or Steam Machine rather, because they cannot find the RAM.
Probably don't even know, because they don't know how expensive it's going to be, because they got to, once they source it, then they could probably determine how much they're going to bang you over the head for it. But you're right. This is the first time now I wound up, once it broke that Micron wasn't going to be supplying chips for consumer level GPUs anymore, I panic bought a 5070 in the hopes that it'll last me 4 or 5 years and I could get around some of this nonsense. But I'm running it on DDR4, and I'm just hoping that this stuff clears out, and I could get some decent performance to build stuff again. Because I'll tell you what, if I were needing to build a new machine, I'm looking at a bundle with the motherboard and everything else. I'm looking at a CyberPower PC or something like that. These pre-mades for the first time ever, because like you said, you can't build anymore. You can't. There's no friction maxing with building PCs anymore. You just got to.
You can't even ask people to friction max.
Can't even ask.
I wanted to just mention that 3 companies this week in the memory business hit $1 trillion in valuation. So it's SK Hynix, Micron, and Samsung. So it's just ridiculous. There's an article here that says SK Hynix workers could receive as much as $900,000 in bonuses this year. Samsung employees could receive as much as $400,000 under new agreements. So, like, the people working in the memory business are making $1 million bonuses, and yet Samsung factory workers are threatening to go on strike because of compensation issues.
This is the one bubble that, now I'm not an economist, this is probably very wrong, but this is probably the one bubble.
No, you can just say things.
No, we can look forward to this one popping, because who are they laying off? The computers? Like, they're already replacing people. So when this bursts, we're going to get cheaper stuff. And I don't know what the impact on the economy, but it's all make-believe money, these valuations. So it's not, I don't know how it affects the economy overall once this stuff finally goes the other way. But I don't think the masses are going to be affected in the way that the housing crisis and J.P. Morgan or Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers going under did. I don't think this is going to have that same impact. I think the rubber band's going to be pretty huge and bad and hit pretty hard, but I don't think it's going to. I hope it doesn't trickle down into the regular economy the way those other ones did.
I mean, maybe Trump is just waiting for the bubble to burst. He will sell all of his shares beforehand because he'll basically know exactly when it's going to. He'll also double dip by making money on Polymarket and Kalshi.
I want to do that. Listen, you can say that all you want.
And then he will get the recession he wants, which then forces Warsh to lower interest rates to 0, which is going to get him some votes at the midterms. Like, he's playing 5D chess here, just like all of his cronies say.
I am annoyed at the Polymarket thing, because that was one you could see coming, because it's on the blockchain. So I had tried to vibe code something that would tell me when new accounts were created, that, because you could see it when new accounts were created, making outsized, they're not bets, I don't know what, predictions on the market, and it never produced anything. But I was annoyed that I missed that one, because that was such an insider, just one that, like, it felt like if you were in the right IRC chat room or ICQ room at the time, there was somebody talking about something that you could have made a couple bucks off of.
Okay, fine. I need to talk about the fact that a Google employee was arrested this week because
there it is.
He made a $1 million profit using insider information betting on Polymarket last year. This is fascinating. So last year, a U.S. employee named, I think he lives in Italy. I have to confirm that, but he voted on the year in search results. So every year Google releases a recap of the year in search, and there was like a 1% chance that the winner, who was David, the 21-year-old rapper who has been charged with first-degree murder for killing a teenager and chopping her up and putting her in the backseat of his Tesla, was the number one search person. There was like a 1% chance that was going to be the top search, but he made that bet and won $1 million from it.
Wow. I mean, that's more, I give him credit. That's more sophisticated than the dude that went out with the hairdryer and was just putting it in front of the, did you?
I don't know. That guy was brilliant. I don't think I could have ever come up with that. That was so smart. You go to an airport weather station and you run a hairdryer over the temperature sensors, and then you bet on the temperature going up. I mean, it's so simple. I love it. It's genius.
You know what? I mean, Jeff Skilling is still around. He's not passed away. Ken Lay, the Enron guy. That was essentially what they were doing with the weather, making prediction markets on the weather and broadband costs and stuff like that back in the day. We have just basically, it took us 26 years. We have just legitimized Enron through the blockchain, and it is just amazing to see some of this stuff. Unbelievable.
That could be our title for this episode: legitimizing Enron through the blockchain. It doesn't make sense, but it I think will get some clicks.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Because that's what they did. Enron had a market on the weather. You could buy, you still can, insurance companies do it. You could say, you hedge. Basically, you're like, well, if the weather is over 100 degrees on this day, it's going to ruin whatever event we have. So you buy puts on the weather, and then it's calculated in some way. So we've just put that on the blockchain now on Polymarket to where a guy could go out with a hairdryer and sway the weather.
Well, the difference is that the SEC will at least attempt to regulate fraud. The Polymarket and Kalshi and those prediction markets are not really regulated. They are overseen by what's this? They're overseen by the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission, the CFTC. But as if you've been reading the news, they want this to be completely unregulated. So I think it's a big difference. I also think nobody who bet on the almanac thought of it as gambling. Like they thought of it as sophisticated betting or sophisticated trading. Whereas I think Kalshi and Polymarket want you to think of this as a game.
Sure. Well, these kids just want to feel something, so they could feel poverty.
That's
by betting through.
Oh dear, it comes full circle, doesn't it? They can't afford the vinyls if they have lost all their money on Polymarket.
Could you imagine winning a huge bet on the weather on June 21st? Like, I'm going out to buy that new Taylor Swift vinyl because I want to.
Hey, I want to close the episode by talking about the rise of colored vinyl. Okay, this fascinates me. So I'm looking up kind of ideas for this show, and I come across this article about colored vinyl and how massive it has gotten because artists like Taylor Swift and Olivia Rodrigo and all these big artists are releasing these limited run colored vinyls when they release
just a different
their new
color?
albums.
Like
they're etched in a particular way. They have these very sophisticated colorings on them that obviously are meant to be looked at while they spin. And admittedly, they are gorgeous. They are really nice to look at. And I have a few, I would say, interesting vinyls. I don't have any colored vinyls, but some that have patterns on them. And they have a couple of I have a Menomina record that has a couple of unique features, but nothing like this. And if you look on the Amazon or anything for colored vinyl, they go for double what a regular vinyl record goes for.
Huh. All right.
And
so that could be the return of physical media, collecting
premium. Yeah, there's like premium markets here for collector's edition colored vinyl, and I think that's fascinating. Right? You go to a concert or you order these special editions, and you're playing your new Taylor Swift record, and I don't know. I think Godspeed. Like, if that's the way that you want to consume media, go for it. Yeah. I just find it absolutely fascinating.
The cake colored vinyl, 100 Canadian dollars. Get yours today.
Okay, that's it.
That's it.
Let them eat cake.
Let them eat. And you wanted this to be a short one.
This is not a short one. This was actually our longest one yet. But also, like, I think this was great.
All right, people.
Steven.
Yes. Daniel.
Thank you for doing this. I'm sorry I bailed yesterday. I was like...
No, I was the one that was late. I was late. I was getting to what I was trying to get. It said unable to connect. I'm like trying to connect things. It was a mess yesterday. Yes, it was a mess. I like the morning energy.
I like the morning energy,
I like
too.
the morning
I'm going to have this, hopefully, now that I don't have to play with Gemini for an hour to try to get a thumbnail that doesn't work.
Right.
I can actually... I can get this up pretty
So
quickly,
to the gentleman who is listening to them all, you now have another one to binge.
Or just wait. Do what I do and just wait until the end of the season and then binge the rest of them. But don't do that.
All right. We'll see you next week, everybody.
All right. Thanks. No, I want to say thank you for listening.
Oh, okay.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm a control freak.